Hello, and welcome to Street Aesthete. This is the show where we explore street view coverage of a noteworthy location while looking out for beautiful architecture and stunning scenery, and I'll be amusing myself by remarking on what we see. Today, we are going to be visiting the South African city of Cape Town. This is a place that has variously been occupied by the Portuguese, the Dutch, and the British, and it's now the second largest city in the country of South Africa. I've never been to the African continent, so I don't have a good idea of what to expect. I imagine it could be a real mixture of modern and European colonial here, but we'll find out, and I'm just going to drop in roughly where it says Cape Town on the map. And welcome to South Africa. Notably, the road infrastructure is set up for driving on the left. Presumably that's a legacy of the city's time as a British colony. And one of the geographical features of the city is, of course, Table Mountain, which I believe is over here to our southwest. So I think if we perhaps head in that direction, and we'll see if there's perhaps a side street that appeals to us. I'm noticing this rather nice rounded shape at the top of the building here. A little bit of an Art Deco feature. It's very nice actually. And in fact, to the southeast is, presumably this is Table Mountain, or perhaps part of the set of mountains that's there. And we've got this lovely eucalyptus tree as well. One of my favourite trees, viewers of the channel will know. And this lovely kind of 1930s font here, matching the style of the features on top. And it looks like there is indeed some building work going on in the city. This is October 2024, so this, I suppose, October would be spring in the southern hemisphere. But mostly, I would say so far, what we've seen, the buildings are relatively modern. But then there are... we'll go and take a look at these coloured buildings over here, but I was going to say there are a few slightly older looking things speckled here and there. This is looking somewhat as if it's drawing from classical style. The red brick, which may actually have been painted rather than actually being red. But if I were to make a guess, I would say this was actually early 20th century. Lovely palm trees here. Yeah, let's take a look at those coloured buildings we spied earlier. Yeah, some very nice stonework on the pavement there as well. Shutters look like they probably slide rather than swing. And yeah, some nice little, what would you call these? Are they colonnades in this sort of upper balustrade here for the balcony? And little classical features of the brickwork on the side there. It looks as though it's kind of actually built of these large breeze blocks. Wow, yeah, really quite a sight, isn't it? Quite a shock of colour. This is the first thing I've seen that actually reminds me a bit of the Netherlands. I don't know if this is actually what it is, but I'm very much reminded of the kind of hoist systems that you see in the upper windows of some of the large canal houses in Amsterdam, which were used for, and probably still are used, for taking heavy items up into the upper stories of the building. Oh. I wasn't expecting it to be so colourful, I must say. And it's really lovely in the sunlight, isn't it? I think we'll head back down the road we were on before. And now we're kind of getting out perhaps into the residential part of the city here. But we've, as I've hoped we might get, we've got a great view of the mountain here. I don't think this is Table Mountain, because from what I recall, Table Mountain is very flat on top, hence its name. But it's very nice to see it framing as a backdrop of these colourful buildings here. And let's just get back to the main road. And we'll continue in a southwesterly direction. More of the colourful houses down that street. Seems to be perhaps a bit of a feature of this part of the town. And apart from along this main road, it does seem to be relatively low rise. You know, we've got even just single story there. Perhaps we'll head into this more sort of densely peopled side of this part of the city. And look at that, with the mountaintops wreathed in cloud. That's a very nice feature there. Hints of classical coming through. And then a bit of an arcade underneath with the columns there. That's lovely. Looking mostly like it's a bit more high-rise and more kind of modern skyscraperish buildings down this way. Perhaps we'll find something more appealing over here. Wow, good thing I spun around there. We might have missed this. Very Dutch inspired, I would say. But certainly with a different sort of colour palette. This wouldn't look out of place, I would say, at least this top part, if it were in red brick in the Netherlands. But the railing here and the kind of balcony layers are perhaps less typical of the Netherlands. And it looks like it's quite a lively neighbourhood. Yeah, I'm not sure how much the decoration here appeals to me, but in some ways it's more interesting and adds a bit more life to the street than something like this, say. So I shan't complain too much. More of these kind of Dutch style gables on top. And some very, I was going to say almost Georgian looking brickwork here. No doubt it's not that old, the building we're looking at, but reminds me of areas of London like Bloomsbury that are predominantly Georgian. And then on this side, I wonder if we can find a bit of coverage where we get a better view of it. There we go, that's good, apart from this little smudge here, which presumably is censoring. And it's very nice, a very nice dome, flanked by the symmetrical three sisters of the gables here on either side. Oh, Yeah, very distinguished. Let's continue. The elephant face here, just to remind us which continent we are in. I quite like this. These, again, this sort of 1930s motif, the rounded arches, and then something a little bit more classical on top. The thing that I don't like so much about it, I suppose, is the colour. I would prefer it if it were a little bit more brightly coloured, but that said, it gives it a certain sort of uniqueness. This is not something you're likely to see in Europe. It's definitely South African feeling. Yeah, lots of this colonial looking architecture about. Very nice windows, I like these. The wooden fixtures. Windsor House. But yeah, very brightly coloured here. I wonder when these buildings were constructed, if the whole street was made of this sort of architecture. That's very lovely, isn't it? And if then some of it was demolished to make way for these larger, newer buildings, or whether there were gaps in the street, or whether these are actually a lot newer than they appear, and that they were perhaps all built in the 20th century, and this is, maybe the whole grid of this city was actually done at the same time. But, with a scene like this, seeing this right next to this, it's surely a case of different building periods. So I wonder what the city might have looked like in centuries past, if there's a lot of heritage architecture that was lost. Very imposing. More of the Art Deco style. And this is very handsome. Don't mind the darker colour of this one so much, because there are so many white details picked out. It's the contrast that catches my eye and that I find particularly pleasing. Yeah, a very interesting street. And that's a little bit incongruous, isn't it? Trapped in between these two behemoths. 1896, yeah, that sounds about right. And then this looks as though it's a lot newer, but certainly with a nod to the kind of the Dutch colonial style. The red brick, the white stripes. I think it could be just topped off by something something up here, a little bit of a gable or just a bit of decoration to give it that final bit of flair. And now we seem to be getting into more of a kind of a downtown central business district sort of area. Lots of glass and concrete, and a lot less aesthetic interest. I mean, you know, this kind of, what do we call this? I was going to say a lattice work, that's not quite what it is. This is a bit of a feature of the building, but I don't know if it's necessarily half as interesting as some of what we've seen further down on this street. I like the look of that. I think we'll take a gander down this street here and see if we can take a closer look. Yeah, something like this wouldn't look out of place in Manchester city centre. And we're in a bit of a pedestrianised area now, by the looks of things. And just noting, again, this kind of rounded, this arch window motif that we've seen in a few of the better looking buildings in the city so far. Yeah, the 1930s style. Again, something you might see perhaps in New York. Wouldn't look too out of place. There is something very bleak about this, I find. At least it's kind of a bright colour. But it's not an absence of windows, but just the shape of the windows and how they're kind of recessed. Makes this building seem very kind of closed off. There's something a little bit scary and prison-like about it in a way. I'm not so keen on that. Some interesting sculpture pieces on the roof over here. Well, you know, not the sort of architecture that I would normally admire, but it's a bit of a statement, isn't it? I sort of like the way that the windows are kind of dark tinted. Makes the reflection sort of a bit more kind of crisp, and yeah, it looks good. This building against this one. You know, there's variety here. They're kind of unornamented, not particularly decorated, and so not the sort of thing that I'm normally very interested in, but I must admit that, you know, this is a distinguished street in its own way. And there, surely, is Table Mountain. We could see a moment ago the flat top, and again it's wreathed in cloud. Where can we find some clearer coverage? Maybe here? Yeah. Quite the plateau, isn't it? I wonder if there's any coverage up there. Well, perhaps we'll find out in... I think I'm going to have to do a part 2 for this city, because we've really only walked down a couple of streets, and there has been lots to remark upon, lots to admire, and lots to ignore also, but... yeah, there's plenty of interest in this city. So I will return for part 2 of an exploration of Cape Town. If you've been enjoying the music that you hear in this channel, then do take a look at my first channel, linked in the description, which is where I upload all of my original music.